Hello, hello. Welcome to our Narrow Road podcast, where I, Amanda Williams, your host, and Avery Williams, your co-host, are living out a countercultural life, and we're inviting you to join us. We're so glad you're here.
Hey, everybody. We are back, and this week we are going to be talking about nutrition. I had a couple requests come through in my DMs, and I thought, I haven't talked about that yet. And what a great time to talk about it right before we go into the season of fall, winter, sickness, school starting back up, and all of those things. And I thought, this is a really great time. I will come on and probably talk about some of the ways that we live counterculturally, with medicine and how we take care of our bodies, but really nutrition is the basis. And so let's just jump in and start there. So I was trying to think about how I even got interested in nutrition. I think I've always been interested in it in some way, shape, or form as a kid. I kind of grew up in the era of Chicometrics, the Atkins diet, the soybean diet, Weight Watchers. I can't even think of all of them, but there was a huge movement in my years of just all of these diet fads and things coming out and exercise programs. And if you go back and watch the 1980s exercise, you know that we have left that in the dust, although I do think it might be coming back, sadly. But no, it was good. And I think I was always interested in the psychology of humans, how our bodies worked. I guess it'd be more physiology probably. But I was interested in that very much. And I would love to ride my bike several miles out to the Bible camp where I would help in the kitchen or jump on the trampoline with my friends. And I did enjoy moving, and I was in track. I loved that. But other than that, I didn't know much about how the body worked, how it used nutrition, what was good, what wasn't good. It was basically just whatever mainstream media was telling us. And so as I grew in adulthood, I guess, and as I was considering motherhood, a verse kept sticking out to me, and it was 1 Corinthians 6:19-20. And it just says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." And so this was just a verse, to a call to live honorably. The Spirit resides here. We want to take good care of our body. We want to make good choices. Even, for people who maybe aren't believers, I think they could agree that moral choices and physical care are a good thing. I think we would, as believers, believe it to be an act of worship and obedience. And so as I was getting ready to become a mother, I was learning, not so much, I didn't read books, but I loved visiting with other people and learning from them. And they would share things about, pregnancy. And I had a lot of friends, going through pregnancy, and they would talk about the benefits of breastfeeding and what pump they were buying and all of these things. And so I started learning, but as we decided that we would adopt and then have some of our own kids, I think if you go back to one of the early podcasts, you get to hear my story about how God told me I would adopt kids. When I was in high school, I heard him audibly. I was so excited. I wanted to get started right away. My mom reminded me that maybe perhaps I would like a partner to do this with. So I'd wait till I got married. Fast forward 6 years after marriage, and we still hadn't gotten pregnant and carried a pregnancy full term. We had a couple of miscarriages, and we had all the testing done, and you're fine, just keep trying. And so we thought maybe God is asking us to adopt now and then have other kids later. We're still learning, still being sanctified, and never ever thought that his plan is simply, you will adopt kids. And how would I have ever known? 6 of them. Such a joy. So anyway, as we were moving into the paperwork and things for adoption, then I'm like, I want to know what kinds of things do I need to prepare for? And so I was learning, and kind of in a discouraged way, that I'm missing that opportunity of pregnancy, the vaginal birth opportunity, nursing the baby, that kind of thing. But I also learned, a lot of people's pregnancy didn't go that way. They didn't even get to experience some of those things the way that they had wanted. And so I just started getting excited about what can I do to bless this baby when it comes to my home. And so I started learning. I think the first thing I was learning mostly about was food coloring and soy in formula. And that was a big thing, a big push. There was that soybean diet. And I just started learning that the way the soy was processed, it had high estrogen levels, and it was causing, in some studies, this was kind of new at the time, even middle school age boys or younger boys to grow like in the breast area. And it was just causing some problems. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I do not want that kind of formula. And anyway, my brain started just diving into all of these different things. And I did start learning about the microbiome and how the mom does pass on both good and bad microbiome to the baby. And so having not known the birth moms of my first two kiddos during this season of life, I just thought, we are just going to go with whatever the Lord has for us, and we are just going to figure it out along the way. But I understood that as the baby passed through the birth canal, it would, take a deep breath and breathe in the flora, and that would feed the microbiome. And in one of our adoptions, I knew that the birth mom was quite unhealthy. And so I was paying close attention to that because I thought, well, what might she pass on? And then the breast milk, that has the prebiotics and the probiotics and immune protection. And, the acidity of the milk, it kind of optimizes the digestion of the baby and it trains their immune system, actually. And it lowers the risk of all the things, the asthma, the allergies, inflammation. And I knew that my son, all the way in Taiwan, was having stomach infections already. And so I just started studying and learning as much as I could and just researching. And I learned so much about the microbiome. So I just want to kind of catch everybody up if you're not familiar. So there's basically like trillions of microbes in our body. Our gut, our brain, even our eyes, our mouth, they all have their own microbiome. So microbes help clean up our environment. They help create vitamins, I guess, in our lower intestine. And they help us digest our food and they build our immune system. I'm sure you've heard about that. But 80% of our immune system comes from our gut. Did you know that? The gut is huge for health. And so moms, I just want you to know, or dads, or whoever it is that is helping with, the grocery shopping and the feeding of the kids. You are the health authority in your home. Don't hand your children's health over to somebody else. It is a gift. And, today, even in our home, but today, kids just have these mystery symptoms that they just can't figure out. Like I said, stomach infections, ear infections constantly, eczema, allergies, asthma. Those that know us, we've dealt with all those things, digestive issues, CMPI, gluten sensitivities. And so the solution that, in our experience, and ones that I've heard from many of you is medications, steroids, and the phrase that they will probably grow out of it. So basically the meds, the steroids, and a bit of hope. And that just wasn't our experience, sadly. I wish it would have. I wish those things would have worked for us. But as you are feeding your kids, be thinking about their gut, their brain, their development and that kind of thing. As babies get older, maybe between 5 and 7 months, and the mom's learning, like, I need to introduce some, solid foods. Then there's this whole question about, well, where do I start with that? And so Aiden came home at 5 months. Avery came home at 11. That was crazy to try to figure that out. And I did it all wrong. But what I learned was that Weston A. Price Foundation, if you haven't heard of them, I highly recommend you look them up. But a recommendation of theirs and many functional medical doctors, those who consider the gut health when diagnosing and trying to figure out some different symptoms, they recommend starting with meat stock or broth. And I always get confused about which one is stock and which one is broth. So stock is kind of your less precious. It's easier to make. You cook muscle meat and bones with meat still attached. Anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, kind of depending on what protein. Chicken, you do a little less, and the beef is a little longer. And then you can just simply feed a spoonful of that at a time to the baby, or give them what they call jelly stock form. And that's just the gelatinous liquid, like, it just, it thickens in your refrigerator like Jell-O. And that's just that sign of all the nutrients and things that have come. And you can just give them a little tablespoon of that and they can play with it on their tray, or if they're working on putting foods in their mouth or whatever, but it's so good for them. Then the broth, that's like an actual leftover carcass. So that includes the joints, the marrow bones, connective tissue sometimes, and that's cooked for anywhere from 12 to 48 hours. And the goal here is nutrient and mineral extraction from the bones. So a lot of recipes will have you pour in just like a little bit of vinegar. That's supposed to open up the bones and let them release. And you don't really taste it. It's just such a small amount, but it also is neat because you're using, the whole animal. And so you're not really wasting part of the animal. You're using all the parts. And so when we are extracting the minerals and all of those things, this just helps break down collagen. And we all know collagen helps rebuild tissue. And so it's really, really good for kids. So if you have little kids and you're kind of in that transition, keep that in mind. Just give it a try. Just see if, you have some beef bones or soup bones, or maybe your mom does or something, and you could give it a try. I think your baby will really like it, and it'll be a really good transition for you. And then you're like, okay, so what do I do after that? And you want to start adding in some healthy fats, so you're trying to learn all of this, like some egg yolks, some butter. And then next, maybe some vegetables. And then next, you want to do meat on the bone. So just cook it with the meat on the bone and just give them that. And then you want to make sure they're getting some unrefined sea salt. And there's all of these things. And it can get so overwhelming, right? And so then we have to try to remember, okay, proteins and fats are building foods, whereas vegetables are cleansing foods. And so we have to remember that minerals work synergistically, and they're very necessary for development. And as I was learning all of these things, I was like, I cannot buy this baby food at the store anymore. And so luckily, we had been, gardening and all the things. And so that particular year, I learned how to, we're always leveling up a little. I learned how to take my garden stuff and make it into pureed and give that to Aiden. And that was so fun, so exciting. And so long term, these efforts, they produce just phenomenal eaters. I remember looking back at pictures of Aiden and Avery sitting at the little table, and they're having broccoli and stir-fry vegetables and peppers in their eggs in the morning. And I just didn't even realize, that would be kind of abnormal for some. And we didn't really have picky eaters syndrome, but they had a voracious appetite and they loved picking stuff out of the garden and trying new things. I found that they had less cravings for like the starchy things and the sugars, and not to mention we could not afford all of those boxed fun foods. Avery had reminded me not too long ago, she's like, Mom, we got like a fruit roll up and maybe some organic string cheese every Tuesday when we went to Classical Conversations. She's like, these kiddos have a whole snack bin. And they did have a little snack basket too, but she's right. They did mostly fruits and meats and cheeses. And then on the one day out that we had to pack something, we would grab a little organic fruit roll up and or a fruit tape and the string cheese. And sometimes I even had to make the fruit roll up because I couldn't afford them. And so kids just need to learn, food comes from farms or farmers markets. And if you think about when you're at the grocery store, for instance, and you're walking through, ask yourself, where are the foods that your children want you to buy the most? Are they in the produce section on the outer side? Are they in the meat department? Are they in the dairy department? Are they with the eggs? No. They're in the center of the store, right at their eye level. You think about the cereal aisle, the granola bars, even some of the stuff that I buy. It's right at their eye level, super marketable to them, and they're learning, they're learning when we are providing those kinds of foods. So anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I was feeling so discouraged because there was, I didn't get to share my microbiome through a vaginal birth, and they had birth moms, and, who knows, like maybe what was passed along. There was no breastfeeding opportunity. And so we just had to jump in and just do the best we could. So like I said, Aiden was 5 months old when he came home, and I told you he had stomach infections. I don't think I made mention. He had a lot of ear infections. He actually had to fly home on a plane with ear infection, which is horrid. Sweet Avery, she came home at 11 months. She had spent 30 days in the hospital on heavy antibiotics. And then Jordan came home at 9 years old. Jocelyn was 7 years old. Jonathan was 6 years old, and Samson was 11 years old. So then there's myself. I have celiac, which is an autoimmune. I had a lot of ear infections as a kid, food allergies, eczema, etc. So, and I was born with a vaginal birth. I had a lovely birth, I'm sure. My mom said it was great. So it just goes to show everybody's different, and no pregnancy or no birth experience is going to be perfect. So all that to say, I just want you to know it is never too late to heal the microbiome. There are ways to do that now. So if you had not the optimal pregnancy or not the optimal birth, or you're like me and your kiddos were maybe from foster care or adoption, and you had very little to do with any of the start that they got to life, it is okay. A lot of people do say to me though, we have picky eaters. They will only eat a couple foods. And a couple of my kids, when they came to me, that was the case. There was a lot of aversion to foods, and it's the microbiome that is mostly driving those cravings. When the microbes are overgrown and they're kind of out of balance, and a kiddo's just repeatedly eating the same couple foods over and over, it just sends like this opioid like structures to the brain, causing what looks like addictive behaviors toward those foods. This is going to happen to us adults as well, right? So you have a couple choices. You can back off those foods, just go cold turkey, and just say, we're not having those, or you can do it little by little. But the main goal is to balance the microbiome and change it in the gut, the mouth, all the places. And that will help develop a more complex palate. We had that happen to us. One of the kiddos came and they informed me that they only eat spaghetti, pizza, and macaroni and cheese, and they do not like real cheese. They only eat fake cheese. And I was like, oh dear, this is not going to go well. But I shared with all the kids that we have a rule and that I'm like, did you know your taste buds regenerate every 10 to 14 days? Like, did you know that? And they're like, what? And so it's like giving them tidbits of information, teaching them they have agency. They're valuable humans. And I think just like bringing them into the fold, like, what do you know that I don't know? I want to tell you a secret. This is so cool. So how about we try that food again in about 2 weeks and see what your tongue thinks of it then? And it ended up working out really well. There was one food in particular, however, that continued to be an issue for quite a long while. And the only reason why I think it continued to be an issue is because in some fried forms or really unhealthy forms, that food was a craving when it came in an unhealthy form. I don't know if I said that right. Fried foods were an unhealthy form. But when it came to them presented in a healthy form, they, would cry and I just can't eat it. Ooh, and so I was kind of catching on. So sometimes there's behavior. Sometimes it is a control issue. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit, some tips of what you can do. But our rule was we try new things each time they are offered, and our taste buds regenerate every 10 to 14 days. So repeated exposure to things can help us delight in new foods. And we talked a lot about just as maybe they would add one food in or try something from the garden that they've never had. Or something they say, I don't like that. Oh, have you ever tried a garden carrot? Let's go out and you can pick whichever one you want and you can try it. Well, before you know it, it's their favorite food and they want to be the one picking the carrots every night for supper. And I think it's just really special to like help kids understand the beauty and like, you're missing out. Oh man, this is so good. You're missing out. I don't want you to miss out on all of God's goodness and his bounty. So we kind of took that approach and it did seem to work okay. And I didn't feel like I was lying to my kids. I wasn't cutting things in special shapes or sneaking food in here or there. It was just being honest and saying, hey, did you know this about your body? It's really cool. Let's try this again. And if you don't like it, that's okay. There's this metaphor that Lee Borton, she's the founder of Classical Conversations, and she would always talk about the watermelon versus ice cream metaphor. And she said, we know watermelon is delicious and it's sweet and it's yummy and kids love watermelon. But if I set a bowl of watermelon next to a bowl of ice cream, which bowl do you think they're going to taste? They're both yummy. They're both refreshing. They're both cold. Which one do you think they will choose? And so she was kind of meaning that more toward education and what you lay out before them as a feast of things to learn. But I even took it literally. I thought, kids naturally prefer the hyper-stimulating, instant gratifying choice, which we would equate to ice cream, other than the naturally nourishing, wholesome choice, which we would equate to be the watermelon, even though both of them provide yummy sweetness. And so I've never forgot about that. I'm just like, our role as parents is so instrumental in regards to both food and education because children lack the maturity to choose substance over the entertaining thing. So therefore, we as parents must be intentional about what we place on the table, in quotation marks, or bring into the home. If we don't want our children feeding on a particular food, here's a secret. Don't buy it. Don't bring it into the home, period. Example. We don't do pop. We have these new things, Ollie Pops. My kids, Aiden and Avery, when they were little, they'd never had them. My kids now have them. And I think Aiden and Avery even enjoy some of them now. But pop just wasn't something we were going to do. I was learning about it. I just thought there's no nutritional value. it's bad for your bones. The carbonation can make your bones brittle. Like just, there were so many things I was learning, not to mention the high fructose corn syrup. And then if you went to the diet pop, that's aspartame and that was cancer causing. There was nothing about it that seemed like a good idea. And so I brought this idea to Eric and he was like, yeah, we learn better, we do better. But it was really hard for him to say no to pop because that was just part of his life. It was a fun drink. It was something he's always drank, really enjoyed it. And so, of course, when the kids were little, he would still get some pops here and there and he would drink them maybe at work or when he wasn't around the kids as much. But he would be like super accommodating in the home and just in very, helpful in meeting our goals as a family. And then Twizzlers. He loved Twizzlers. And, I'm like, oh, red food coloring. It's petroleum, guys. Like, why? No other country allows this. And so I started looking for other options. I knew there was healthy companies out there making different sweet treats. And I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a different brand than I get anything else. It's the only thing I get from that brand. I will try to figure it out, but it's like little nibs, like the cherry nibs you can get of Twizzlers. They're organic and they have no food coloring. And he said they're actually better than Twizzlers. He loves them. The only thing is they don't sell them in our town. And so I either have to drive to a different town to a store that I do not like, and I bet you guys can guess what it is, and I have to stock up on them if they're in stock, or we just don't get them, and then every once in a while he has a craving and he'll go grab some of the bad ones. He also loved jalapeno queso with corn chips. It's like a spicy dip with just the regular corn chips. And they make like an organic version of the Frito chips. Did you know that? Yes, organic corn, shaped just the same, like a little scoop. And then we could make our own queso with jalapenos. Now, as things have happened, us building the house, all the thing he does from time to time still get that. And it's just par for the course. It's just things that we have to work through. McDonald's, for youth events, for whatever reason, if the kids are going to Hidnickers Camp, they always stop at Webster City McDonald's. If they're going to Impact in Des Moines, they stop at the Story City McDonald's. If they're going to Coralville Impact, they find it at McDonald's. And, it's cheap, fast, whatever. And so I had one kiddo in particular who literally could not eat that food. It would probably put them in the hospital. Honestly, their body was so sensitive and struggling. And so because my mom and dad lived in Story City, I said, hey, would you mind frying up a burger and making some French fries if I provide it for you? And of course, my mom's like, I've got this on hand. I'll do that. I'm like, he likes bacon. He likes cheese, ketchup. And then I have a gluten-free bun that kind of looks like a McDonald's one. What if we just went out to McDonald's and asked if we could purchase one of their bags and their the little cardboard trays, things that, the little containers they come in? Because this child in particular had entered an age where I don't know if he noticed it as much as I did, but kids were starting to notice, like, why do you always have something different than us? Food allergies at that point weren't as prominent as they are now. And so you kind of were the odd man out, you kind of look weird when you're doing, bringing your own food or whatever in your little lunch pail. So I just thought, hey, as a mom, this is a medical issue for my child. And I would love for them to just be able to participate and just feel like this event, it has nothing to do with their food. You get tired of thinking about your food all the time when you have allergies. And so bless my mom's heart, she drove out to McDonald's. They were so happy to gift her the little container, the bag, everything. She had it all packaged up. And as soon as their bus got off, he got in line like all of his friends, like he was going to order. And when he got up there to order, she handed him his bag. Nobody even knew. He went and sat down at the table, ate his food. He lived and he enjoyed himself. I'm not saying every mom can go to that degree. I'm just saying there are things you can do to protect the microbiome of your kids, to protect their life, actually, when you have kids that are sometimes, in this space of it's life or death. There's things you can do just to celebrate them and to bring joy and to protect them. So what happened through all of that, like with my husband's struggle of giving up some of those things or us not having the healthier options available to us in our town, we did come up with the question mark or the question, what is the healthier option? So you're going to a birthday party tomorrow night. They're having pizza and they're having cupcakes. What would be the healthier option for us? They live in Mason City. There's a Domino's there. They have yummy gluten-free pizza. Let me call in an order for you. I'll have it delivered to the birthday party. You want an organic cupcake that looks like everybody else's? Oh, Hy-Vee is starting to sell them. They're gluten-free. They have dye-free sprinkles. I mean, the whole thing. There is stuff out there, you guys. And it's not that hard once you start figuring it out. And so the day before, dropped off the cupcake at the kid's house. The mom knew, and nobody knew that their cupcake was different than everybody else's. So there's things you can do. So we just said, rather than saying no all the time to our kids, no, you can't have that. No, that's not good for you. No, it's what's the healthier option. So yeah, sometimes as a parent, you have to call ahead. Hey, I see that you're providing a meal at the birthday party tomorrow or this weekend. Do you mind me asking what you're having so I can bring something comparable for my child? I don't want to burden you with all their, and people would love to help, but I'm like, no, it's just so much easier for me to know what he's having. I will take care of it. And they were so happy to help. And so anyway, just an idea for you. Birthday parties, you've got Christmas and Thanksgiving, sleepovers, church potlucks. So for sleepovers, I would be like, hey, let's go to the store and buy all your favorite snacks. And then you can bring them to share. Grab a drink that you like and you can bring it to share. I would do that with Avery. She loved these little Izzy drinks and certain chips, like a sour cream and onion chip or just a plain ruffly chip, or, there were just little things along the way. She loves strawberry granola, things like that. So it's like, hey, let's bring some stuff to share. And that way there'll always be something there for you to eat as well. And church potlucks, those are really, really hard with Eric being a pastor and us doing like fellowships once a month. And then, you hit the holidays and there's all the fun things that you guys do together. What I noticed, and I don't know if it's the same as your church, but a lot of times the church will provide the meat. And it's usually like a pulled pork option or a burger on the grill or something like that. And so I would just, check with the person who was doing the meat and just make sure that it was conducive. Like typically they do it pretty bland because they know there's a whole gamut of people coming. And so I found that most often the meat would work for us. And then I would bring a couple dishes, usually like a dessert dish that my kids liked and that I knew they could have. And then side dish that I knew for sure our family could eat. And then there's always, carrots and vegetables. Usually people bring a meat cheese platter. Like it was super helpful just to pay attention to what that meat option was. So I knew they were getting full on that. And then I could bring the side dishes that would work for us. And then if there was anything else, I could do it too. I do remember VBS back in the day was particularly tricky because, gluten-free wasn't a thing. And I don't even know if there was anybody but us. And so I would find out what they were having. I would make a comparable option at home and send it with them. So while the other parents were enjoying a night off of cooking, I was going the extra mile to make sure that our kids had something that looked just like their friends, that they would not die when they ate it. So just some ideas for you. Like it's a season. And I think nowadays, whether you have a food allergy or not, if there's just convictions you have about food, I just encourage you, just go the extra mile. You can do it. It changes everything. When your kid is healthy, they sleep well. They are completely different in their behavior, how they act, how they respond. School is easier. I think a lot of times of the breakfast that we send our kids off for the day with, and it's like putting diesel in a gas guzzling car and expecting it to run well and then being frustrated when it dies halfway down the road and we have to come rescue it. Then we're frustrated at the car for not performing and that kind of thing. Probably a bad analogy, but that's what I always thought of. It's like putting bad gas in your car and then expecting your car to perform and carry you where you need to go. And I think we do that to kids a lot. We feel bad, bowl full of sugar, chocolate milk on the side, and grab a banana. Well, that's also sugar. And then we send them off to school and expect them to take tests well and to be able to read and to sit still all day, and even in homeschool. And so I think Aiden and Avery always felt super strange because when their friends came to spend the night here, we would make bacon and eggs and hash browns and all these things for breakfast. And when they would go to their friend's house, they were so excited because they got cereal. And so that just wasn't something we did a lot of because I just knew they needed more, that microbiome. It was so important. And so I would just say, don't lie to your kids. Don't try to trick them. Kids are so smart and they are such a blessing. They can see right through. They have agency. They're individuals. They have likes and dislikes. They are, they deserve our best. And so instead of tricking them, let's teach them. And again, like I said, take them to the grocery store with you. Walk up and down the aisles and say, hey, what are they putting at your eye level? Let's look at the ingredients here. Oh my word, high fructose corn syrup, red 40, blue, you can go through the whole list. What is this word? We don't know. Let's look it up. So just teach them, let them discover on their own. We would also watch some different documentaries. There's one by Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, I think is what it's called. My younger kids are watching it now and they love it. It shows literally how chicken nuggets are made. It shows how beetle poop is used to make candy that you eat shiny. Did you know that? I'm just a ball of information for you today. But it's gross, guys. It's really gross. So just like helping people understand what is being done to mass produce food in America and what does it do to our bodies long term. I think it's helpful. And you know what? There might be a kid that's like, I don't care. I like it and I want it. And I would think, okay. And until their microbiome is balanced and you're nourishing them, you're taking something away a little bit and filling it in with something nourishing, it's going to be a slow process, but just keep going. And so I think that when we did the foster to adopt thing, we had to come up with a system because nobody really had ideas. I mean, I don't know. There might be books out there on this and things, but mostly what we were trained on is that, the kids might have control issues or, certain foods might trigger something, this, that, and the other. And so what Eric and I decided to do is anytime we would invite a kiddo into our home, a foster to adopt placement, the first 2 weeks, we let them have what they like. So we would ask some of their favorite foods. Oh, you like chicken nuggets and fries? Okay. We got chicken nuggets and fries. Now the rest of us were eating gluten-free and, maybe I did offer gluten-free chicken nuggets, but they got to pick the thing. And so if we went out to a restaurant, for instance, where all of us are ordering something gluten-free off the menu, I just let them order whatever. Yep. Chicken strips and fries. You go for it. Pizza, whatever. And what I did during those first 2 weeks, I figured they're already going through such a hard time. Everything's new. Everything's discombobulated. Everything's turned upside down. Let's just let this flesh out. Let's just be patient. And so I would start pointing out like, my goodness, you have tummy aches a lot. Do you always have tummy aches? And I remember one of the kids, yeah, after I eat a lot. Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to pay attention to that. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. Diarrhea, lots of gas. We're always driving in the car. Who farted? Oh, you again. Is your tummy hurting? I had one kiddo could not go to the bathroom, constantly constipated, sleepless nights. Now, a lot of these things can be from you're living in a new home with new people. Of course, there's going to be some things. But I just took the opportunity to point out like, oh, I'm so sorry. Would it be okay if I gave you something for that? Or would you like, some charcoal tablets to help with the gas or the bubbling in your tummy? Or, I'm introducing them to new things that might help you feel better. And I think that not only got us to know each other better, it helped us bond and it helped build trust with them. And I think it's more respectful when you approach a kid that way than you just tell them what they're going to do. And of course, I was still in charge. I didn't buy foods that I disagreed with and that went against my conviction in my home, but I did let them know that they have agency and you're valuable to us and I want you to have your favorite things. So I would start explaining maybe what might be going on in their body and teach them that, hey, there's another option. I know you really like Coca-Cola. Have you ever tried one of these? And I might get out, the Olipop. This is a vintage Coca-Cola and it has blah, blah, blah in it. And it helps your tummy feel better when you drink it. It's super fun. It looks like everybody else's. It comes in a can. Would you like to try one? And yes, they love it. They're so thankful for it. And then as we get through that period where, we're starting to feel a little bit better, I'm trying some new things, I would always ask them, may I have 2 weeks of your time? May I have 2 weeks of your time to try some things with your diet just to see how you feel? Would you be willing just to give me those 2 weeks? And thankfully, they all said yes. And so we would, there was non-negotiables, no food coloring. We didn't do weird medicines, seed oils. I didn't bring those seed oils into my home. Now, if we went to a restaurant, obviously the fries were fried in seed oil. So I majored on the majors, minored on the minors. I just didn't bring things into our home that we didn't want to eat on the regular. So what we tried for 2 weeks is we went gluten and dairy free. And the reason why is because gluten, if there's a website, National Library of Medicine, it is a website full of scientific literature. So if you want to do your own research, and I highly recommend you do, I would go there and just look up whatever research you're wanting to find out. So when we talk about gluten, glyphosate, we have to talk about it, guys. I'm sorry. It's an herbicide which disrupts your gut microbiome. And that's, something that's important to me. Whether you have celiac disease or not, messing with your gut like that just throws everything off. And so we're just not setting ourselves up with success for our kids. So in 1974, the trade name for the glyphosate was Roundup. And you've all heard of this. In 2007, okay, so think of how long ago that was. It's 2026 right now. 180 million pounds were poured on our conventional food, while 8 million pounds were put on home gardens. That was in 2007. I did not do any research to see how much it has grown, but I did look in 2015 and it had tripled. So I just kind of had to stop there because I get real passionate about this. So the point is 180 million pounds of glyphosate is being sprayed or dumped onto your food that you're then putting in your stomach. And we expect to thrive? I don't think so. 8 million pounds was put on home gardens. That is just mind-blowing to me. Anxiety has doubled from 2008 to 2018. In 2009, corn and soybeans reached the maximum residue limits allowed in the United States. They have the highest ADI in the world. ADI, acceptable daily intake. So these things are not only being sprayed and absorbing these things, but they're at their maximum limit. Mind you, other countries, these things are against the law. They are outlawed. Okay. Glyphosate crosses the blood-brain barrier, affecting the brain. We have an uptick in Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, neuropsychiatric conditions, schizophrenia, depression. It decreases your serotonin levels, causing sleep disruptions. What happens when we don't sleep? We can't think clearly. Anxiety escalates. And this just makes me want to, I don't know. It gets me so frustrated. In addition, dairy, when we talked about CPI, the cow, give my brain a second to rethink, but when we talked about the dairy, conventional milk has synthetic vitamins added. It has processing additives left behind. And then many people are developing a lactose intolerance from the A1 casein protein. And so A1 is just during digestion, it releases peptides like BCM7, triggers that gut irritation and inflammatory responses. The immune responses were like skin flare-ups, joint pain, sinus congestion, excessive sneezing, and not to mention, there are additives and sugars put into the milks that you see on the shelf and food coloring because milk sometimes doesn't look bright white. And people don't want to buy it if it's not bright white because that's what we've been trained is good. And so those are things you're ingesting in your body. There's chemical preservatives that promote inflammation. They are finding in conventional milk. And it's just fascinating, right? The conventional dairy also shows residues of antibiotics, hormones, inflammatory grain-based feed components. And so if you ever thought about this, what food are cows supposed to eat? When God made a cow, what food was made for them? Not corn, grass. And so we are killing ourselves with how we are mass producing food supposedly to feed the world. And I know this is controversial and you can come at me all you want. I am open to good discussion about this. But they have now figured out what's causing some problems. And so we have a farmer, we get raw A2 milk. So only A2 proteins, the same proteins found in human breast milk and goat/sheep milk can now be found in cow milk because of their genetics. So A2 protein does not provide or does not produce BCM7 during digestion. And so people are really doing well on this. So A2 still contains lactose. So if you are lactose intolerant, that would not be something you would even want to try. But it is full of vitamins, minerals, and macronutrients. And think, what do we use milk for? To make our cheese, our butter, whipped cream, sour cream, ricotta, cottage cheese, etc. And so you might think, oh, I'm not a milk drinker. I should be fine. Well, think of the things you do eat that it takes from milk processing. A2 milk tastes the same, has the same texture, etc. A lot of people have said it has better color, drawing in sales without adding the food coloring, which was shocking to me. I think it looks white. It's the kind we get is white, but apparently, that little bit of discoloration can really throw some people. So I think that when we're working with our kids, it's just helping them understand the truth about the food. And yes, there is sometimes when kids want to have control over their food, especially if they're coming from a trauma background or they've moved around a lot of houses and they just feel like they've never had a say in what goes on in their life. Like they don't get to choose who they live with. They don't get to choose anything. Somebody shows up and says, pick one toy, get in the car, we're leaving. They've had their voice ripped from them. And so yes, I feel bad for them when they come into my home, but I just love them too much to just say, okay, just eat whatever you want. Like that's not love, right? So what we do is we talk about the food issues and like, you may want to go, I don't know, get this ice cream that has food coloring. Well, here's what we have. Instead of that popsicle, you may choose this watermelon popsicle or this strawberry banana one. You get to choose which one would you like. And that's a lot of times how I would set it up. Give them two healthy choices and say, you choose. You're in control. You tell me. You're the boss here. What do you want? And it has helped so much. I think they just want a voice sometimes. And that's not always the issue. If there's a food that kids don't like, it can be a texture issue. We've had a couple of those things in our house too. We have learned that most children in our home do not like cooked spinach. They'll eat it in a salad. They like it fine. So I had to think, I really want them to have these certain vitamins, these certain nutrients. I have these recipes that our family loves that calls for spinach. I found kale. Kale holds up much better than spinach. It's nice and crispy. My kids eat it without a problem. They actually love it. We make kale chips from the garden. It was just a really good replacement for that texture issue. Still met our goals, still honored our convictions, but it still valued the individual who would be eating the food and gave them, something of value that they would like. Let's see, another thing, tomatoes. Everybody loves ketchup. Everybody loves spaghetti. Everybody loves pizza sauce. But sometimes a fresh tomato slice is just too much to bear. It's the mushy. So the one thing that's really, really hard is BLTs. And I went through a season where I was not having any nightshades in my diet at all, which would include tomatoes. And a good friend of mine who had a grocery store, she said a lot of times with people having sensitivities, if they have Hashimoto's or they're on an AIP diet, they'll steer clear from nightshades. And so they're replacing it with peaches. And so she's like, grab a peach, go cut it, put it on your BLT, now your BLP, and see what you think. And thank goodness for her. Because then I started realizing there was peaches in the salsa that this company was making and the ketchup and the barbecue. And it was a really comparable thing. And everybody loved it. And now I can have tomatoes again and I'm, having them fresh and I'm learning. If you lay out your paper towels about a half hour before you want to make your BLTs, you cut your slices and you lay it on the paper towel and you salt and pepper them. It gives time for the juices that sometimes cause it to be mushy to drain away. And then you flip it over, you salt and pepper that side. And by the time you get to making your BLT, it is much firmer and my kids loved it. So there's ways you can do things that can still get your goals accomplished and it can still be a healthy option, but you're still valuing the individual. For me personally, I literally gag when I have to eat shredded chicken. I just do not like it. But if you cube the chicken, I can eat that all day long. I did not realize that until just about probably last year. I was cooking all these whole chickens and I'd shred the meat and was so excited to use it during the week. And I just wanted to vomit every time I looked at it. I just couldn't do it. And I remember when I managed a tea room back when Eric and I first got married, they would buy from Cisco this cubed chicken, and that's how they made their chicken salad. everywhere else I would go used shredded chicken, and I never wanted chicken salad. I only wanted the cubed way. And then I got to thinking, I also used to get chicken salad at Arby's. This is back in the day before I knew about celiac, and I was living my best life, and they had a chicken salad there, and it also was cubed chicken. And I thought, yeah, those are the ones I migrated toward. It had to have been something with that shredded chicken. And so I get so sad when I'm looking at recipes online and everything, shred chicken, get a rotisserie chicken and shred it. I just don't like it. So I have to go the extra work of, getting the chicken thighs or the chicken breasts, cooking them just right so they're not too dry, and then making the recipe work. But at least I have that option, right? So sometimes it's just buckling down, just doing brainstorming. You're not giving in to junk food. You're not letting the kids rule the roost. You're just considering them and just like, yeah, I think that's a small tweak that I could make that could really bless them. So, like I said, sometimes it's not about the behavior at all. It's about physiology and unmet needs. And once we meet those needs, we experience a completely different child. So, as an aside, most kiddos, when they come from the foster system, they come highly medicated. And it's interesting to me because I have 4, and they all came with the same exact medicine profiles. And they are nothing similar in those ways. Their needs, what I found as we started doing nutritional response testing and feeding their bodies what they were longing for, we could slowly, the doctor's like, yeah, we don't need that med. So it was really cool to see how their bodies could balance out and be so healthy without needing those meds. But they're nothing alike. Like their needs, yeah, they went through similar situations, but their needs were so different. And I just was flabbergasted that like the same 3 pills were given to all 4 of them, 3 of them biologically related, 1 of them not. And it was the same exact profile. And so just remember those medications, they wipe out the good bacteria in the gut. And this can cause overgrowth of yeast. So you may have heard of this called candida. The yeast shows up to help cleanse actually, and it wants starches and sugars to survive, which causes cravings for the human of more and more, sugar and starch. And so you might have kids that are just all they want is bread and cereal and pasta and sugary treats. And so recognizing that like, okay, they're coming off medications, their gut's been destroyed. We're slowly going to be rebuilding this. Some of those cravings just simply are not their fault. And we can remember that for ourselves too. Sometimes you have to go to the dentist and they need you to take an antibiotic or something. And maybe you're not an antibiotic person. You ward them off like the plague, but you really need this one. And your gut is going to suffer. And so you have ideas of what you can do to start protecting that and heal that. So again, especially with kids, but also with ourselves, we want to balance our microbiome slowly and naturally. We don't want to do some dramatic herbal cleanse causing gut misery and all these things from detoxification and die-off. I think that's really hard on a kid, and it's not going to make them want to try again, when you want to do it again next year or whatever. So just be thinking through some of that with your nutrition and your ideas. You can pull back a little bit on the starch, and you can up the liver meats each day. You can, save the liver from your cow if you get a cow processed each year. You can dehydrate it. You can put it in capsules. You could just eat a chunk of it. You can turn it into a powder. You can eat it fresh, whatever. Meat stock again. We talked about that when 3 of my littles came. We would warm up a cup of beef stock at night or chicken broth, and they would sip on it before bed with their bedtime snack. And they just thought it was so fancy and so fun. And sometimes I would warm it up for breakfast in the winter too. And it is just such a great punch of vitamins and nutrients. Give beneficial yeast to the body if it's really craving kefir. I don't know if you've heard of milk kefir or water kefir. When Aiden and Avery were little, we could not afford juice. And so somebody had given me these kefir grains, and so I started studying those, and I was making my own juice out of these kefir grains. It's actually called water kefir, but my kids called it pear juice. They thought it tasted like pears, and they loved it. And so also remember, when hard things happen in life, it's really tempting to go back to our old ways or to give in to those cravings or those habits that we had. And if you or your kids make a mistake, if your kids turn 17 or 18 and they throw caution to the wind and they want to try all the things that they haven't had forever because they're finally they just want to feel normal, or they enter a sport where their diet needs to change. And so they're trying different brands and different things that you're like, oh, I don't think so. Don't worry. Just support them, because all the hard work that you've done on a cellular level, their body knows what to return to. And so I just also want to say that as a mom, when we learn these things and we look at these beautiful children that God's gifted us with, if you're anything like me, you're a protective personality and you want to do whatever you can to protect them. But if we are spending so much time researching and so much time worrying and stressing about family events and different foods and all these things, we're going to end up getting sick and getting all the diseases that we're actually trying to prevent by eating healthy. Does that make sense? And so we just have to take a deep breath. We have to do our very best. We have to know God is in control. He honors our hearts. He knows that's what he cares the most about. If you read in the Bible, he doesn't care about all the good things you're doing. He doesn't care. He cares about your motives, your heart. He knows your heart to take care of your children. He knows your heart to protect them from these horrible things, diseases and different things. But if you are making yourself so sick and so strung out from all the research and all the studying and, is the heart to help or is it responding to fear? And so I've been studying the fruits of the Spirit a little deeper this last month. And I think faithfulness and self-control can be hard for me in certain areas. And I had to realize, these are gifts. These are gifts. They're not something I can go buy at the grocery store on the counter or off the shelf. These are gifts given to me by the Lord. And so he's not calling me to master these fruits of the Spirit, but he's calling me to walk with him, the master. And one of our podcast listeners actually knew somebody that I knew, all these things, and said, "Hey, do you have her number? I want to send her a text message." And so I got this text message and she was like, "Hey, I just want to bless you the way you blessed me. Give this a listen." And it was all about the fruits of the Spirit. And it was such a blessing. And so in that, they said, we are not called to master these, but we're called to walk with the master. And I have to remember, he cares about relationship. He cares about our hearts and he cares about relationship. And so as we are having a heart for doing the right thing and taking care of our bodies as the temple of the Holy Spirit, we would always say in our home, do your best and let God handle the rest. And the things that are out of your control, just give it to the Lord and he will take care of us. So I hope you have enjoyed this information. I hope you are encouraged to start thinking about your health differently, your nutrition, your kids, as we're heading into the school season. We're gearing up for sick season, as they call it. I just pray that even if you could take one little nugget, if there's one thing that you want to research or one thing that you want to try, and if you are one of those people who is so overwhelmed by all the choices and all the research, find a friend who loves to research and don't take advantage of them. It does take us a lot of time to do the research, but let them know, this is where I'm struggling. I want to learn more. I am in a space right now where I am paralyzed by this. Can you help me get started? I'm happy to hear from you, happy to help, encourage how I can when I have time. But I'm just so grateful you're here. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.